I would like to call the meeting to order. This is the Litchfield Budget Committee, and this is July 24th, 2014. If we could start with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have two members that are not able to be with us tonight, Ray Peoples and Dan Valancourt. They are excused for this evening. We will start out then. The next agenda item is public input. We don't, unless somebody comes running through the doors, we don't have anybody in the audience tonight. Revision to the agenda. Are there any changes or revisions?
Madam Chairman, as I said in my email to you, I would like to have added to the agenda a discussion on how the Budget Committee will fund cruises.
Okay. And I had that under general lease purchases, but we can certainly talk specifically about police cruisers. Alrighty, put it under town business. Anything else? All right, the next item, review and acceptance of the minutes. I know there have been some changes, and I think a large number of those came from you, Frank, if you want to run through what they were.
On page 1, listing of absent members, I was not included. I don't know whether the Budget Committee wants to include me, although there was a selectman rep there, Mr. Brunel. It's up to the Budget Committee either way. On page number 2, line 40, at least my autocorrect says, at the end of the sentence, it says, from the school board is that communication goes through the chair, rather than go through the chair. Whether it's significant or not, I don't think it is, but whatever.
Alrighty.
Page number 4. Lines 26 through 27, somewhere Mr. Valancourt came into the meeting. I don't know where or when, and I guess my only thinking is it may make sense to record when he entered the meeting and participated in the discussions. And the reason for that is contained on page number 6. Page number 8. Where you recorded a vote of 6-0-0, although there were 7 members at the meeting.
I did make those. I don't know if you got my email. Yep.
Yeah, you said you...
And I did note that he came in at 7:15 because I went back to the video.
Okay. On page number 6, line 42, it says Board of Selectmen purchased the lease. I think when Mr. Pascucci said this, and I'm not trying to, I wasn't at the meeting, but I can only assume, he meant to say when Selectmen performed or did a lease purchase, rather than a purchase the lease, because you don't purchase the lease. I don't know. Maybe he did say that.
Yeah, I don't remember, but, I mean, obviously you can't purchase a lease. So.
And the same thing is on page 7, line 12. Also on page 8, line 10. That was it.
All right, and I think Michelle, as she said,
I did. I made all
got
of
those
them.
earlier. I had... I just need to find it. Oh, and you know what? I don't know why mine didn't print out the page number. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, page 6. And it starts out, Mr. Spencer commented that the intent is that there is something, is that the right page?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Then it says, Mrs. Couture commented that another RSA is relevant to warrant articles. It wasn't about any specific warrant, to warrant articles in general. And she indicated that the Budget Committee can question if warrant articles are spent appropriately, is what the gist of that was. And just make sure there's nothing else. That's all I have.
I'll make a motion to approve the amended minutes as discussed for June 26th.
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain.
Excuse me, I'd like to change my vote to abstain as well, I'm sorry. I had it in my head that I reviewed them, and therefore I was okay. But I'm gonna abstain.
You're too
So-
fast, Frank. I was going to jump on you on that.
502. It's easy to get caught up. All right, moving on, we have correspondence. The only correspondence I have, I mean, we had some forwarded items. We had the bus contract forwarded out to us. We had some school budget items forwarded to us. We had agenda items which are coming up where Mr. Pascucci sent an inquiry and there was a reply to that. So I believe the only correspondence are things that are already contained within the minutes of the meeting. You're looking
I'm
confused.
sorry,
Did I miss something?
Did you say we got a reply to,
Yes. Did anybody else get it? I forwarded it along.
Turned around pretty quick, I thought.
Yeah, it was almost immediate, the
from the-
response. From the New
Okay.
Hampshire Municipal Association?
I'll double check when I get home.
This is the one that the town administrator,
This is the one that Mr. Pascucci sent in a question, and it came back, actually, it did come back through the town,
right,
and they forwarded it to me, and then I
Correct.
forwarded it to
and
the
it was,
committee.
yeah, it was pretty much.
Okay,
within
I
the
did
same-
see that. I interpreted that as coming from Jason.
Oh, okay. No, they, when they responded to Chris,
That
they
was from-
neglected to CC me for whatever reason, so
Okay.
it was forwarded to me. Yeah. So that's, again, so that's correspondence, unless anybody else got anything that remembers that I've forgotten or got themselves. So then, moving on to old business, which is the inquiry of the New Hampshire Municipal Association. Mr. Pascucci, as the last time we talked about, he had a concern about the wording and wanted to inquire with better wording. So I don't know if you want to just give a brief overview of what it was, because we may have people watching tonight who have no idea what this is. So if you want to give a brief overview of what was asked and why.
Okay. I don't have any of the paperwork here, so I don't recall any of the parts of the question or the original one, because I've kind of filed it.
Okay.
But I believed and still believe that the questions that came from the Board of Selectmen to the town's attorney weren't accurate. And it references in here a little bit. Well, I don't want to say weren't accurate.
Wasn't asked the
Didn't cover
way.
the-
Wasn't asked the way I believe they should have been asked. It was some were generic, and then one question asked a part of it, and then later on, another question asked something else, and then if you put the two together, it could give a conclusion that doesn't really answer what I believe should have been answered. But like I said, that was part of it. So I asked a question which I thought, and the response that came back, look, like I said, I filed it now, but basically it came back saying the Board of Selectmen has a right to transfer money from one line to the other, and they have the right to manage to the budget to the bottom line. Something we already know, but again, I don't believe it answered my question at all. And I've spoken with a lot of people since, and it's just the way it is. It's, nobody wants to get, it's like the Supreme Court doesn't want to get in the middle of the healthcare debate. They don't want to get, so, in my opinion, and this is only me, it's the nice, safe answers to just kind of get through this, and, we just got to kind of move forward. So, it is what it is.
All right, well, I.
But I don't believe and if anybody, I mean, obviously, it's in the minutes.
Yeah, I have it, so why don't I mean, basically, the question that the selectmen asked was, if a capital item is purchased on a non-appropriation contract, and the subsequent year the proposed budget passes, and that was the word that you had concerns, passes, followed by a few years later, the town operates on a default budget while the item's debt is still being paid off, does that require the town consider the item no longer has an appropriation and the lease terminated? And your concern was that rather than the budget passing, what happens if the budget fails? So you wanted to change that one word so that in subsequent years, the proposed budget fails, what happens?
Oh, if I may, now that you read it, it jogged my memory, so I could tell you exactly what my concern was. And after the last meeting, and after I asked the question, I dug a little deep, and then I realized the premise of the question asked by the Board of Selectmen. I thought it was, you see, in my mind, when I read that question, it's like, they created the budget, and they said it passed, and then a couple years later it failed. And I said to myself, well, the past 2 years, the budget failed, so therefore, there was no passed as part of it. So I said, something's not right here. But then I realized, and maybe Mr. Byron could, clarify, the way the question was asked, it was like, when the cruiser lease, the two cruiser lease that was acquired 3 or so years ago, that was just paid off this past year, that's how the question was stated. So in other words, we created a lease 3 or so years ago, it passed, which it did. They got the 3-year lease on the two cruisers. So then part of their question says, and then a few years later, it fails. Does that mean? So that's why I mean the question wasn't asked properly, because what failed was the new lease on the new cruisers that was in the budget, but the Board of Selectmen was trying to get the point across to the attorneys that, no, the original one passed, therefore, and you could see in the attorney's response, basically they said in shorthand, look, years ago, you created a police department, and when you did that, you agreed to fund it and keep, so therefore, you have to keep funding it. So again, you could just keep going deeper and deeper and deeper, and in my opinion, it's not worth it anymore. I just want to make a statement, because it was said to me again after the last meeting, and a few people said it. I still don't believe we went about this the right way with the lease, because clearly a 3-year lease expired, and the new lease that was in the budget failed. So you could say however you want to carry it over, or the original lease you're just carrying over. I was told by more than one person that let's not pursue it anymore, because the remedy is much more harmful, which that's a different way to look at it, because the remedy is harmful. The remedy, if indeed it's not right, means we have to buy those cruisers at $80-something thousand in this year's budget, and we all know we don't have the money. So,
Or you turn them in.
and you can't do that. You got to operate a police force. So from my thing here, this is my dilemma. We need cruisers. We need them. You have to have them. We have a
Point
police.
of order, Madam Chair.
Yeah?
I thought the discussion was on the letter that went
Yes.
in.
And that's
the
what we're asking.
response. No, you're digressing now.
Okay.
Which I think we're going to get into later on when Frank comes up.
You're right, Bill, thank you.
Okay, well, that's
Yeah.
fine. So I just, so the point is, what I was trying to get at is the questions weren't answered to the questions, and it can go around in a big circle.
So just
All
for
right, well,
clarification.
let me read, why don't I
Okay.
continue to read? So the response from the lawyer, and Chris provided some background information on the town March 2013, in the situation of the specific to the cruisers. I write in response to the following inquiry and attach a 2006 decision from the New Hampshire Supreme Court in the matter of Sullivan v. Town of Hampton Board of Selectmen, which answers your inquiry. As the court makes clear, when you are dealing with the management of the default budget, there is no focus on individual lines in a budget. The governing body, which is the selectmen, has the authority to transfer funds between purposes in order to continue to provide ongoing public services. In your situation, the last approved operating budget certainly contained funding for the public purpose of providing police services. These vehicles are part of that ongoing public service, and the protection for the voters is that the governing body must continue to manage all public services within the bottom line of the notice default budget. Now, the other thing that's pertinent to that is when you read the court case that he sent, because you keep talking about the budget failing. And so I thought it was important that in this court case, it specifically says, if voters fail to adopt the proposed operating budget, they are either deemed to have approved the default budget, or the governing body may choose to have a special town meeting to plan and submit a revised operating budget to the voters. So this specifically says that when the proposed budget fails, then the default budget passes.
Correct.
It's not a question of, well, what did the voters mean? The answer is, it passed. that budget passed. So I think that the information he gave us was very helpful, and I do think it answered the concern of what happens if it fails.
No, I agree, they have the right, but here's the thing, now, at the risk of getting off topic, which I don't think we are right now, is part of this whole thing was that those police cruisers should not have even been in the default budget because it was a new lease. So I agree with that case, I agree with what the attorney said, and like I said, because if that is truly the case, then there is no relevance to this board, and the voters' vote has very little meaning, because all you need to do is put anything in the default budget, any budget put out could fail, and then the default budget, you can do whatever you want, and you could do any lease you want. So I am prepared to stop talking about this, and I know Bill's happy about it, I'm prepared. I am done. I think I've made the case clearly. It is up to this board now to do your own homework, do your own studying, and let's move forward from here. We got to get things done in this town. We have to purchase things. We have to improve things. All I ask is that we go about it the right way. That is it.
So I just, again, getting back to this, you asked it the way you wanted to.
Correct.
And you got a response from a neutral party.
Correct.
So we've got to, we've got to give this some credibility.
It's got credibility. They answered a different question, but that's fine. I'm giving it credibility, but they didn't ask the question with the intent that I had asked it, and that's fine.
Are there any comments from Mr. Byron on this matter?
I'm asking people to do their own homework.
Well, or any other member of this committee that also got the response.
Well, there was a lot of Board of Selectmen references, that's why.
My response is, we took an action which our attorneys have said is perfectly legal. When we were challenged on that, I put together those questions and had them sent to our attorney, who gladly answered them, and we gladly shared that with the Budget Committee. The Budget Committee challenged the questions, wanted them answered by NHMA. They rephrased them, remodeled them, remolded them however they wanted, or however the Budget Committee wanted. They went to NHMA, and we've now gotten back the same response. To me, this is a done issue, and we've got to move forward. And that's why I've asked on this agenda that we discuss how are we going to fund police cruisers going forward.
And I agree with Mr. Byron 100%.
I'll cover that at that time, but I think it's critical that we, I'll say this up front. The Board of Selectmen does not want to argue with the Budget Committee. The Board of Selectmen wants to work with the Budget Committee to make sure that the best interests of the town are considered. And we all have a stake in this, and we all have responsibilities in this. And I think it's time now to take a step back, take a look at what our responsibilities are, and work together to try and come up with how do we fix this? How do we get this so that it goes to the voters, makes sense, and everybody's on board with it?
I agree again. That's why I just said, let's move forward from this point on.
All right. Any other comments? All right. The other item was Budget Committee workshop. I did do some research on that. If you want to have an individualized workshop, it's $475. Flat fee, doesn't matter how many people you have come, and they encourage to open it up as wide as possible.
Time out.
Yes.
Let's take it a step back. Can you fill me in as to why is a Budget Committee workshop on our agenda? Is it for the new members? Is it for the benefit of the entire committee? What's the objective of the workshop? Who will provide the workshop? That type of thing.
Over the last several months, there's been questions about whether the Budget Committee can question the school district and the town budget decisions. Who can contact New Hampshire Municipal Association. So there's been a lot of questions about what is the authority and the role of the Budget Committee, individual and group. So I believe strongly in training. So the committee agreed at the last meeting for me to go and research what options might be available. And so this is just a report on what options would be available.
Yes. Now, 2 years ago, right, I took a class, I believe it was through the LGC.
Yep, and that's part of my,
Okay.
and I know the selectmen have some information as
Yeah.
well. So that was,
Pass that down.
yeah, and so an individualized, yeah, I have this copy. so if anybody else wants to look at it, because that's part of what I also have too. They will do an individualized training for $475. There is, however, as you recall, I also went a couple years ago, and I know you went a couple years ago, every September they do a training, budget committee, budget training. It's not necessarily budget committee, it's budgeting in general for selectmen, for budget committee members, for school board, it's just open. That is $75 for a member. However, when I looked at that and when I recalled going, there wasn't anything specific to the roles and responsibilities of individual budget committee members. How do you, as an elected official, what can you do, what can't you do, and whatnot? So I sent an email, because along with the workshop, there was an email, if you have questions, please contact them. So I contacted them and I asked that specific question. I said, there doesn't seem to be any thing in the workshop indicating roles and responsibilities. The response back was they do have a presentation that's entitled Legal Pitfalls to Avoid in the Budget Process, and they are soliciting questions from people who sign up for this workshop. And he gave me the link, and he encouraged anybody who signs up to submit whatever questions they have, and they will make that part of their presentation. Because that was also what the committee said, is there a way that we can ask that the roles and responsibilities be incorporated? And that seems to be the perfect fit. If we have questions, we can submit them, and they will be covered in that workshop. And I know, like I said, I know Mr. Byron has more information on the workshop when he gets to his information.
Actually, I don't have any more information.
Oh, is that, okay, yeah, I have a copy of that too. So, I also emailed Jason, and I asked, because I recall in the past that we went through Jason so that he would submit one. So I do need to find, and he did say he would prefer that because it's much easier to manage. The one thing I need to find out though is, because this was what they had responded to me is when you sign up online, submit your question then. So I need to find out how, if we submit through Jason, can he just take all of our questions and submit when he puts all the names in, or just the logistics of how to do that? Because this takes place before our next meeting. This is September 18th, and our next meeting is September 26th or 4th or something like that. So this will be before our next meeting. So I want to make sure that I get the information and get it out to folks.
So is this separate from what you were just asking or inquiring about having somebody come here?
Yes, this was I was just gathering information. This is what I'm presenting. You can do individualized, private for $475. We can go as individuals to the $75 one, and we can ask whatever question, send in whatever questions we want to make sure that they cover during that, and those were the options. And in my opinion, I think spending $75 and going and having, although maybe when you add up however many of us.
Right, if enough people go, it might be better to get a personalized session.
Might be better to get the personalized session, exactly. So that's, whatever this committee wants to do.
I mean, it's well worth it. I've gone a few times, actually.
I've only gone once. I did not go this past year. I went 2 years ago, and I did. I thought it was very informative. I think I'm an advocate for training, and I think the more information you can get, the better you can do your job. So, whatever the committee's feeling is.
I think it's great. I mean, I know if we're targeting the September 18th class, I personally will not be able to attend.
Mm-hmm.
And just for that reason, selfishly, the individual sounds better to me, but that's just me.
Well, the individual is good because it'd be total attention to hear
Exactly.
and our concerns. Because you got to admit, at that meeting too, they get off into some tangents that have absolutely nothing to do with anything that we're even remotely
Right,
interested
and be
in.
able to
Yep.
ask specific
Yep.
targeted questions
Yeah.
relevant to our town.
I probably wouldn't attend any of them. Just to let you know,
Okay.
I don't know about Ray and Dan, so.
Mhm.
I'm sure Dan would, he hasn't been to one yet.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. And I do recall he was interested.
Yeah. He did
I
mention
don't
that
know
to me.
about- Yeah.
So are
I
you
don't-
looking for a motion and a vote tonight?
We can do that, or just give me your opinion, and
Well, I mean,
and
time is
talk-
of the essence, right? If we're not scheduled to meet until September 25th
Yes.
thereafter, and this is before September 25th, the
Mhm.
decision needs to be made this evening.
Right.
Right? Else we're meeting in August.
No, we're not planning to meet in August. We can certainly
Be in
do that if you want to.
What are the thoughts? Yes, 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 yes. I'd like to make a motion to move forward with the independent training session.
Second.
It's been motioned and second. Any further discussion?
Where's the money coming from?
Well, we'd come from the same place because the town would pay for the individual sessions.
Yeah, but how many individuals would go?
I know I would go.
I would go.
Chris would go.
I'd go if I were planning that far out.
Yeah.
So
Would you go?
there's-
Oh, well, you would go, but you can't make it.
Can't go to that date, so
Yeah.
there's, you know.
And then Dan would go, so that's
So there's
5.
five.
Don't
You
bet on
only
it.
six and a half.
The other question I had, I'm sorry.
You could local, then you could invite other boards.
You can invite, yeah, you could invite selectmen, you can invite school
School
board. you
board, you're
can
right.
Even other communities around us, if they're, you know, they said that you can certainly, they don't have however many people you want.
Well, I know to ask questions, but hold on, I know it's open questions to elected members, but would this have to be to any elected people? Or no, if you invited, like, the chairman of one of the local boards come, like planning board, if they needed to?
If we wanted to open it up to them, we certainly could.
Okay. I just didn't know what the policy was, because certain's elected and certain,
Appointed, I would,
yeah.
You know, off the top of your head, who would be teaching that class?
I only know who is planning to do the one in September, and that is, Stephen Buckley, Cordell Johnston, and Gordon Graham.
Having worked with Stephen Buckley for 15 years as town council,
No longer town council.
no longer town council, I would just advise you,
So we could
you
ask
know,
with who we
take it for
want,
what
right?
it's worth, but he's not the type of dynamic person that you could expect to get along with.
Well, like I said, there's 3 of them who are planning. 2 of them I don't know, 1 I do know. I recognize the name.
Cordell Johnson's an attorney, he's also a lobbyist for NHMA. So he deals quite frequently with legislators in the state house, and he's well-spoken, good attorney, based on everything I've seen. The other person,
Gordon Graham is generally one that does, for the school board when they have our,
I don't know him.
I'd like to withdraw my motion and make a new motion, if that would be acceptable.
Sure, I'll withdraw my second.
okay, it's been withdrawn.
Okay, I will make a motion for our chair to research whom will provide the on-site training, and pending sufficient response to the chair, that we move forward as a group with that training.
Second, and just,
Essentially allowing the chair to make the decision pending a sufficient response from whomever.
right, because we'd like to obviously have an appointment before we're deep into the budget session,
Correct.
since we're not meeting again until end of September. It'd be good if we can get this,
Decision.
you can get this underway and just book it. And, I mean, there's a lot of people there.
We are scheduled to review budgets starting on October 23rd. So I would say as long as we can find a date between now and before October 23rd.
And it would be great to also, I mean, while we're on the subject, open it up to the planning board, the conservation commission, anybody else that would want to come, since it's one charge, because they do speak about pertinent issues, and they might have some questions.
Yeah, I mean, my specific, that I feel that needs to be covered, that may not necessarily be covered in the September 18th training, is the roles and responsibilities of
Right.
elected officials. Because that, I think, is very broad, and I don't think most people in the state of New Hampshire understand what that means once you get elected.
My motion is structured around, giving our chair essentially the ability to make the decision on behalf of our committee,
Pick
in the
the
interest of
person.
time.
Yes, I'm okay with that.
Any further discussion? So this is for me to research, find out who's going to do it, and what
Make a decision.
timeframe, and make a decision.
Yep,
Um,
dates,
I was going to say now, I'm going to need to pull available dates.
Yeah, the day, what if we picked a date that again you
Exactly.
can't make it, so.
So that's gonna need,
Yeah.
I'm gonna need to get a couple of possibilities
Right.
and then pull you for
You get 2 or 3
dates.
dates then, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
okay. All right, so, if there's no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstain.
Aye.
That's 3 abstain, it passes.
So this is for the $475?
Yes.
This
Yeah.
is to
One-
research the $475.
Yeah, I'm research, you
Just to be
basically
clear.
gave authority
you
to
gave
have
it.
this happen.
If the chair so chooses.
No, I'm not arguing with
Oh,
that
okay.
at all. It's not a point of concern for me.
Oh, okay.
I just want to make sure that the budget committee should consider that it's like people from other committees, you may want to distribute the costs a little bit as well. Or you eat the whole cost yourself, however you want to do that's fine with me.
What I can do.
How can we eat the cost, Frank?
Isn't it
Go
all the
negative
same
on your
bottom line?
budget.
What I can
The bottom line
do,
budget.
Same bottom line?
That's what I thought.
it's the same bottom line. So what I can do, though, is have a discussion with Jason Hoke about how it would be funded.
Transferring from one line to another.
I can just see my RSA 3222
Which
questions
they have the
now.
right to do.
All right, so that was the training workshop, the workshop inquiry. Moving on to new business, we'll have the school up first. And the only reason I put the 2015 budget and the bus contract in there were just because we had received those the last meeting, and so if anybody had any question, I want to make sure there was an opportunity, so that's, don't panic.
All right, I only have a few things, actually. Last evening's meeting was very short, most of it was non-public, but something that came up from the prior meeting, I'm sure you're aware of that, but Ms. Douglas was removed from the Planning and Building Advisory as a budget committee member.
Mm-hmm.
There's no conflict there. I also have.
I will remain as a citizen.
Right, but not as a budget committee.
Okay.
Last have a copy that was passed out last evening of proposed tuition cost, if anyone's interested.
Can you circulate an electronic version of this,
Yeah.
please?
Yeah.
So we
Here.
can see how it was derived.
Yeah, so you, so
We got
you,
another
so
one
you- so you
coming.
give it the paper ones to the two
Yeah,
non-electronic.
I bring the paper because I know they like the paper. That's why.
So
Well, there's
you-
not enough, so now my.
What's good is during the school board meetings, I collect all the papers and I can bring them the next day to you guys, so.
Clearly, the paper copies were meant for us too.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
The last thing I have is I have some numbers for year end. Revenues over projection was 1.6, or $316,208. Appropriations underspent was 2.6, for 519,265. Adjusted underspent less those restricted is 1.2, total appropriations of 231,630. And the unassigned fund balance ending is $726,746.
What was that?
What was that?
That was the unassigned fund balance ending,
Which is?
726,746.
You got that last night?
Yeah,
Is this something you can forward?
actually, I got it this afternoon.
Is this something you can forward to us?
Yep.
Again, so that we can,
And so the adjusted underspend, less the self-funded special ed and instructional staff and training is $231,630, or 1.2% of our budget.
Did you get the total budget, the total package
No.
last night?
No,
Okay.
I actually got this today. I didn't get it last night.
Okay. And at some point, we will get the final for,
Yep.
probably not
The final year in June, right?
the distant future, right?
I would think, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Can we put a request in for that?
Say again?
Can
We
we-
can, but he doesn't have it right now.
Oh, he
so-
doesn't have it.
No, we haven't seen it.
It's not available yet. Got it. So the school board has to review it first,
That's
right?
what, right, that's why I wanted to at least give you the numbers.
okay.
Okay.
Which again, a big chunk of that is from the unanticipated revenues.
Of the 700,000?
I don't have it in front of me, perhaps you know, Mr. Spencer, what is the percentage increase year over year on these tuition rates?
I don't even know what this is.
Okay, so this is a tuition rate per student, it appears.
Correct.
This is how,
being if we take
Allocate-
somebody in.
Allocated per school, right, so
Right.
what's the increase year over year? is the
I don't know.
question. You don't
And
know.
it's all based on a
How should
formula
I
by the
know?
state.
Well, you know a lot of numbers off the top of your.
We have never seen the tuition rate that we charge out of,
I saw
you
something
go.
similar to this
Now you
last
know.
year.
I've never seen it before. Let me
Yeah.
rephrase it then.
it's calculated every year, and this is if we bring a student in, or we used to have there used to be a policy that employees could bring their kids in. I can't remember if they paid full price or half price or whatever, but yeah, I think it's half or some percentage of it.
Yeah.
So I know they're calculated every year, and
I mean, that's revenue. I don't pay attention to that.
It's actually calculated in the DOE 25.
Oh, it is.
Right. So it's specified on there.
Oh, formula based on DOE 20. Got it. Helps if I read it.
Been a long week.
so the 231,630 underspend, that is not counting special ed,
Correct.
and what else did you say?
The unexpected revenue.
And revenue, okay.
Any encumbrances from the school board?
I don't have anything on that.
So in June, you guys didn't meet and determine that there was gonna be some unexpended revenue, and then decide that there were projects that needed to be, that it needed to be,
Well, there were some items that were spent ahead from the next budget.
oh, okay. In other words, if you need cleaning supplies, at the end of the year, you might purchase some cleaning supplies ahead
I
to
see.
relieve some of the tightness in the future budget.
Buying in bulk.
So nothing outstanding,
No.
or?
We discussed a few, but then nothing.
So what was the number that'll be applied against the tax rate?
I believe that would be the.
726,746.
Yeah.
Oh, you'd be pleased.
What,
That's healthy.
what is where did the revenue come from?
Most of it came from the insurance.
And the Medicaid, I think it was.
It was part of
We see,
the LGC refund.
was it health insurance, or when you say insurance?
It was, I don't know the background to it, but you mentioned it last time, Bill, so you're familiar with it, that we either, I don't know, did we overpay?
Premium refund, yeah.
Yeah.
They overcharged you.
Well, it wasn't overcharge, it was actually under orders of the Secretary of State's office to refund monies to municipal entities.
Yeah.
Okay. No,
So that was the bulk of it?
That was the bulk of it.
Yeah, from the last report, there was,
7,000.
the last report we got from it was 238 for the refund and
Yeah.
another 87 for Medicaid.
Okay. All right, any other questions?
I noticed you had the bus contract on there again also. I didn't know if there were any questions on that.
Yeah, I do. You ready for one?
Go ahead. I may not have the answer, and I told Frank
No,
that any
it's easy.
questions I had, I would send off to
You
you.
know, the first page of that contract was the summary here.
Say it again?
The first page that you sent us had
Okay.
a summary of the contract changes.
All right.
And then the contract was attached to it. And just to let you know, I don't think what you have down there for the late bus are the right numbers. They don't jive with what the contract calls for. They're off by, calls it for an 18% increase the first year, and should be 15, which is what the contract is. And then everything else is out of sync. Other than that,
I think the late bus right across. every
no,
year.
no, this is
I'm
just
thinking
the, just so, you know, when they put the budget together, I want to make sure they're working with the right numbers. But if you look at the contract, they've got the wrong rates there for some, I don't know where they got the numbers from.
Okay. I remember seeing this. So you're saying in the contract, it says 15% for the late bus?
Actually, the contract is very specific, gives you the exact number,
All right.
okay? And the late bus is $49.91 for the first year, which is a 15% increase, which we expected to see.
Okay.
And then the rest of them are less than what, because they take 5% off each of them.
Yeah.
In terms of your health insurance, I know there was a new health insurance program in the teacher's contract.
Yeah,
Has that been implemented already?
it has, yeah.
Because I know the town benefited significantly financially if we delayed implementation of the health insurance plan until September, because we would recoup at that point another allocation from LGC in terms of monies coming in.
At least I believe it has. Has it, Michelle?
I'm sorry.
He's asking if the new insurance,
Yes, as of July
Yes.
1st, it has been implemented.
And I think if you are a customer of LGC up till September 1st, I think it's September 1st, somewhere in that time frame, you get next year's allocation. And then what ends up happening is you can leave after that point anytime you want.
It's worth looking into.
yeah.
We still get dental through Health Trust. It's Delta Dental, but we're still,
I have no idea
small
about-
member, but.
I have no idea about the dental insurance, but I do know that the town's health insurance, we purposely delayed going over to a new insurance plan until, I think it's September 1st. Don't quote me on the date, but it's around that time, so that we were assured of getting the second distribution from LGC.
How did, what does the town, because I know the school district always ran July 1 to July 1 for all of their benefits. How did you work it to get that extra couple of months in there, or did
I
it?
believe you can leave them within, I think it's 30 days notice or somewhere in that time frame.
Okay. Just curious.
Jason can give you details on that if the school's interested.
They're not asking.
But if they've already left, it's
Yeah, that's
passed.
interesting. All right, anything else for school district? Any other questions? All right then, moving on to town.
In town business, there's no general issues going on. Everything seems to be running fine. The budget, all the budget lines appear to be in alignment with the relative schedule through the year. Nothing there that at least I saw. In terms of revenues, we've collected about $906.5 thousand out of an estimated total of $2.17 or $2.18 million. But there's a lot of big hit items that will return for revenue in the rest of the year, one of which is the highway block grant funds, the payment in lieu of taxes from Hudson, as well as the rooms and meals tax, which we should be getting very late in the year, which is,
So you're really running ahead of revenues.
we'll probably run ahead of revenues. And sometime in September, the MS4 will be generated, and that'll go to the state to set the tax rate. So
Okay.
everything looks fine. I haven't seen any issues with the expenditures or the revenue so far.
Just a quickie on expenditures, Frank. The only one that I spotted, and I wonder if there's an issue there, the lieutenant's overtime is fully spent basically for the year. Is there a reason for that? Is there a shortage of
We were
personnel?
down a sergeant, so that may be part of it, but I don't know the direct answer to your
Okay,
question, Bill.
yeah,
I can find
the
out.
money's all gone, what was budgeted.
So it could be the fact that we were down a sergeant. We did swear in a new sergeant last selectmen's meeting, which was a week and a half ago, something like that. So I think that may be part of what the issue is. I will find out.
I'll ask the question now. It can be asked now or under review of expenditures, doesn't matter.
Well, he brought it up.
Well, for our last meeting, right, in terms of general updates, I had sent a list of questions over to the Board of Selectmen. There was a prompt response to all questions. One follow-up question I had, and I don't have it in front of me, so, but it was regarding the SALT account. I seem to recall a $70,000 spend year to date, so I think it was right around 73,000 if I remember correctly. And the response didn't make a lot of sense. The response was something to the effect that because we had a significant winter, you know, we overexpended that, that's fine, I understand that, but wasn't that budget for that 73,000 allocated after this past winter? So how can we already be overspent on that budget?
We start spending the budget in January 1, and that continues until the last snowfalls or the last ice incident that we have. So in that period of time, we spent that much in salt.
So the budget's set January 1.
The budget starts to spend January 1.
Got it.
The budget's not approved until.
Correct, until March.
March 13th or whatever the date is.
Okay.
Now, I did hear our salt shed is kind of full, right, which is good news.
Yeah, part of the response was
Yeah.
that it's full.
Okay, it is
It's
full.
been restocked
Okay.
since winter, and that's normal procedure that we
Good.
restock.
Right. Any other general questions?
There are, and this is more a question for the road agent, there are several, just driving around town, right? There's several significant potholes in this town still that I figured would be filled in. I don't know what the status is on road maintenance, but just a general observation.
If people have issues with potholes, and report them to town hall, we'll notify the road agent and have them go out there. Fill 'em.
Yeah.
He may not know about them, that's the,
Okay.
if you want to give me where they are, I'll bring them in, that's fine.
Anything else under general update? All right, the next item was at the request of Andrew Cutter, which was weekly versus monthly expense reports, so I'll let you take it from here.
The weekly versus monthly expense
You-
reports, I'm
you-
trying to remember. Oh, yes, thank you. This was for our agenda item last time, yeah. So one of the requests that I have to the town administrator is to, or really from the finance manager, right, to distribute a monthly report as opposed to the weekly report. I don't know whom else on the committee really looks at the weekly reports. I do as well, but one of the challenges that I've had is the weekly reports are run on Friday, right, which is great, it's worked out well, but they're run for the month and not a period within the month. So as an example, if today is, we'll just say June 27th, because that's when I ran into this problem, and the next report wasn't run until July 3rd, I don't have in my data, under period expenses, the expenses that actually were incurred from June 27th through the end of June, so that 3 or 4 day window. So it's making reconciling the expenses a little bit difficult, whereas if we had it as a month, say on the first business day of the following month, I would get the full view. So the request is to consider distributing a monthly report as of the first business day of the following month.
So I would look at this as a situation where if one person wants the report on a monthly basis, then we can generate the report. But if we get into a cookie cutter where people want multiple reports cut different
Agreed.
ways, that starts to get cumbersome. We're more than happy to give you a month report. In other words, if you want to see just expenditures in the month of June, that's fine. But the town systems are based upon a weekly expense report, and that's the way we would continue that. You should be aware that if you start doing monthly and then trying to compare that to weekly, you're going to end up with, you
Understood.
know, incongruous matches that don't line up. But if that's what you want, that's fine. I think the second part, so you have to tell us, does the whole budget committee want that?
It's up to the committee to decide. From my
And-
perspective, it would be
and-
helpful.
Or is it, if it's Mr. Cutter alone, then that's fine, we'll just send it to Mr. Cutter. But the second question is on Excel, so I think
Yes.
there was a question that he wanted to have the reports generated in Excel. And our system that we have, the module that generates the report right now is not generated in Excel, it generates in a PDF. There's an additional module that is there in the system that we could use to do Excel generation. But we will have to train our office staff on how to do it, and we'll have to run a separate report and separate types of inputs and management of the system in order to be able to run the Excel.
Are you on a new system?
Same system.
Interesting.
You just save as.
Well, I mean, 2 years ago, the town administrator provided an Excel report within a matter of 2 minutes of me asking. And that was a continuous process up until Mr. Brunel and the committee had decided to stop that, so.
And that's probably an accurate description, but Mr. Hoke is the only person who runs that module right now. And what I'm saying is if we want to run that module, we'll have to train the people in the office to do it, because Mr. Hoke's not available all 100% of the time. So we have to make sure that there's more than just Mr. Hoke that can run it.
Understood. I just don't think it's maybe as cumbersome as a process as one might think based upon your response. That's all.
I just want to clarify, this is to replace weekly reports with monthly reports, so this wouldn't, we're not asking to add work. We're
I'm
asking
actually-
to just do
I'm
work.
actually asking to subtract work depending upon what the committee would like. Instead of a weekly, I'd like a monthly in Excel.
Well, I want to be clear, it's not going to subtract work, because the town systems are weekly, and we're going to stay on weekly.
Yeah, it's
The only
additional
reason we
function.
would be generating a monthly report is at your request.
Okay.
But the reports that you presently distribute are as of a certain point in the month. There's no week range if you look at the date ranges that are within those PDF reports. Right?
Bill, did you have a question?
I got you.
Okay.
It's up to the committee. I mean, on average, when I look at the reports and to transform the data into an analyzable format, it takes about, once I have a template built, it takes about 45 minutes a week. Whereas if I had it in Excel, which can be generated from the town hall, it would take literally 5 minutes.
My question is, why do you need it?
It helps me analyze expenses and understand when we come to the budgeting process where actuals versus expenses, you know, when we do averages, as an example.
But we get that, though, even on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis.
Well, we don't get it in terms of, we don't get percentages. We don't get averages.
No, we get the actual total, though, year-to-date.
You get the total expended along with the period expense, yes,
Yeah,
right. And what I'm saying, Bill, is in the period expense, right, if it's as of June 27th,
yeah.
right, and the next report is as of July 3rd, you don't clearly see the expenses that were incurred from June 27th through June 30th.
But, you know, that's in the noise, Andrew.
Yeah, but
you
that's
know-
important to me because that's making it difficult for me to reconcile back to their data.
You know, I love numbers, I love to work with this stuff. But at some point, you gotta draw a line and say, how deeply do I have to get into the town budget? I mean, you're not doing the same thing with a school budget, and that's a $20 million budget.
Because we don't get the data.
I know that, but that's, if I was gonna spend time, it'd be on the school budget, not on the town budget. Hey, the committee can do what it wants. I honestly think that you're getting into too much detail. I'll lecture now. Getting into too much detail and coming up with questions to ask the town, which the town, if I was sitting there, would tell you, hey, it's within the bottom line, don't bother me. I mean, seriously. No.
Frank?
Yeah, I want to just read to the committee the response from Mr. Hope on this, so that you have a good understanding. It says, "We run expenditure reports weekly, and these are used regularly by department heads to monitor their budgets. It is also part of our internal controls program, providing additional oversight for expenditures posted to the individual departments. Since we run checks on a weekly basis, this reporting is a timely snapshot of current conditions."
Right.
And as a segue, this is my comment now. This, and I know Bill participated in some of this, was put together as a control mechanism years ago after we had an incident where the treasurer took large sums of money. If there is a preference for monthly, this is back to his response, if there is a preference for monthly reports, we can either send the weekly year-to-date report to a wider mailing list on the first week of the month. This is the simplest, since we're already generating the report for staff and Board of Selectmen. With some additional work, we can generate a special report for the previous month and send it only to specialized mailing lists. The additional work is not significant, but it is adding a new task. Monthly reports will likely be less informative given the timing of some payments, reconciliation, etc. You may recall some confusion last year around the reading monthly reports prior to monthly reconciliation, which was usually completed by the 15th of the month. Lastly, in terms of additional formats, the system does not offer reporting in forms other than PDF. Our default format for sharing documents publicly is PDF, since it is a controlled format, not easily edited. a function does exist for exporting budget reports in Excel format. However, it is a different reporting section of the software. If necessary, specialized reports can be generated. I will need to train the staff on how to find these reports in the accounting software, since it is in a section they do not routinely use. Overall, weekly reporting is integrated into the routine workflow. Any changes will generate additional work that duplicates an item already produced.
So what
Up to
was,
the committee.
there was one section where you said that you already generate a monthly, year-to-date
On the
month?
first of the month, right?
As a
Maybe what you're
PDF.
looking for.
It should be what I'm looking for. I haven't seen it. One question for clarification, does the town administrator backdate expenses? So is it, as of the 15th, as an example, right, are they backdating expenses to June when they incurred the cost, based upon invoice received?
You're
That could be-
asking me whether we're running, what, a ledger type system or a...
Pretty much.
Yeah. I don't know the answer, to get the answer to that.
All right, that could explain why I'm having difficulty reconciling the numbers today in PDF. Okay.
All right, what do we want to do? Anything?
I'm not sure the state specifies. The state may specify which system you have to run, and I'm not sure which way it is. I know...
If there's a monthly report that's already been, my ask is not to put burden on the town.
What's the name of the statute, not the statute, but the...
If there's a monthly report that's already
Accounting.
produced, if we could be added to that distribution list, at least at a regular rhythm, so we can get a
Yeah.
feel for what it is,
Yeah.
that'd be great.
The app may specify which one we have to run, but I'm not sure.
So if it's an easy fix then to just broaden who gets that monthly report that already exists and that's already generated for department heads, is that something that's, that can?
Yeah, like I said, we can run a monthly report, but that would go from the first of the month to the last day of the month and inclusive.
No, I thought you said that there's a report that already gets generated and
the
sent to
first of
department
the
heads, that, on the first of the month?
According to what he wrote here, he says, if there is a preference for monthly reporting, we can either send the weekly year-to-date report to a wider mailing list on the first week of the month. This is the simplest, since we are already generating the report for staff and Board of Selectmen.
Right, so it's not asking for anything new, it's simply asking to be included on a distribution list.
And then stop the
But
weekly.
what he's saying is, we're not doing monthly, I'm not interpreting what he's saying as we're doing monthly reporting.
Okay.
I don't see monthly reports, I see weekly reports.
Yeah.
I see the same reports you see.
Uh-huh. Okay, I thought I interpreted what you said, that there's,
I'll read it again. If there is a preference for monthly reporting, we can either send the weekly year-to-date report to a wider mailing list on the first week of the month.
A
That's-
weekly
doesn't mean
year-to-date
it's a
report
monthly
on the
report.
first, that's true. A weekly year-to-date on
Yeah,
the
you
first
should
day of the
track out
month.
the previous year.
He's saying whatever is posted as of the first day of the month will be sent out then, as opposed to waiting until the end of the week.
No, we're gonna continue.
Continue,
this
yeah,
On posting on Fridays.
right.
So as a next step.
But if you want, we're making this more complicated than it needs to
Yes.
be.
Sounds like it.
We can easily generate a PDF report that goes from, let's say, July 1 through
End of month.
end of month. If that's what people want, that's fine. But we just need to know who gets it and everything else. We can also go back in time and generate probably from January 1 all the way to,
Year-to-date.
yeah, year-to-date, those reports. So generating a PDF report is not a problem. Generating an Excel report, we're going to have to do some training and everything else. Again, just saying, this is additional to what we're already doing.
Yeah, from my point of view, I'd be happy with if you had a monthly report, no problem putting it out, fine. And then stop sending me the weekly ones,
Whatever,
yeah.
I think that personally suggest that the committee has to decide what it wants, because if I have to do something for...
I just don't want to make,
No, well, that's what I
And
want.
that's
I
not the
want us
ask.
all, if there's a few people who spend a lot of time analyzing this but prefer monthly, I don't have a problem with it, because I glance at it, but it's gonna mean more, to you than to me,
yeah,
so.
quite frankly, weeklies are just too much, but I figured that was all they could generate, If you can generate a monthly report, that's fine with me.
And if you could find out
I think.
how you're incurring expenses or invoices when they're, if you're backdating them, that'd be helpful for me.
Okay.
Is there a general consensus then? Is monthly acceptable?
Oh, I always used to do it, so monthly was
I
my
trust
favorite.
it to be,
I used to run monthly reports and do monthly things, so I was more comfortable looking at a monthly period anyway.
All right.
Weekly is just, that's
Too much.
5 times as much.
Basically, that's fine.
Does that work?
Yeah. As I said, we can generate a monthly report. All we gotta do is push a button on the current system
The
and say, here's
PDF.
the
That's
period.
easy.
Okay. All right, that works.
Yes, thank you.
So the budget committee wants monthly report,
Yes,
okay?
by consensus, unless you want to vote on it.
We'd like it from the school board too, but we're having a hard time doing that.
I get one weekly from them.
expensive work, yeah.
right.
Second question, do you want retroactive monthly reports to January 1?
Not necessary.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
So
just going
do you
forward.
want to start this going forward from, say, July 1 to end of month?
Makes sense.
Yes.
Yes, so our first report would be
End of the month, the first of the month.
August
first of
1st.
August, yeah,
Yeah.
on or about the 1st of August.
I just have a PDF, sorry.
It's all right, I have a template built anyways.
Alrighty, the next, I had 2 requests surrounding lease purchases. I tried to make it generic and leased purchases in budgets. One was, Bill had made the request, however, he would like the entire committee to be present when we make a determination of how we're gonna go forward with lease purchases in future budgets. Frank had asked for that from the town side, just to understand how cruisers should be purchased. So if we're gonna hold off on a discussion of how the budget committee wants to go forward, we'll just then have the discussion from the town's request and the town's side.
Well, I think they're, whatever. The bottom line on it is, from my perspective, is we need to purchase cruisers. And that's an ongoing function that's gonna happen every year. You're gonna expect to see some level of cruiser purchase. We can talk about what the right level is, I got no problem with that. I don't really wanna get into that because it just doesn't make sense at this point in time. But somehow that has to fit into a budget. And it has to fit into a budget either as a budgeted item, or it has to fit in as a warrant article. If you put it in as a warrant article, it's my belief that you are risking the town's safety, because if no means no, we're out of luck for cruises. And I know that there's gonna be some here who will say, you have to trust the voters. And I don't have a problem with that, but at the end of the day, you may end up in a situation, one way or the other, where you have no police cruisers and no ability to respond to an incident going in town. I think the best means of doing this would be to put into a budget, either as a purchase, outright purchase, I don't care either way, or a lease purchase, or whatever you want to do, that's fine with me. We used lease purchase simply as a matter of trying to lower the cost to the citizens and spread that cost out over a period of time. That was the simple nuts and core reason as to why we did it. But the Board of Selectmen needs to have an answer in terms of going forward as to how we're going to do this. And we'd like to develop that and agree to how we're going to do this before we get too far into budget season.
And that's what I was hope we could do tonight, Frank, but I really think that all members ought to be here. My concern isn't with the police cruisers per se. My concern is with the operating lease, or the, whatever you want to call it. And I think that
Sorry, Bill, I didn't hear. The operating what?
my concern is with the leases themselves, not the police cruisers, but with the lease purchase itself and the municipal lease. And once I saw what the attorney's recommendation was and interpretation was of how they can get approved, basically anything, once the operating budget is approved, you folks can enter in a lease purchase. because effectively the voters have approved the operating budget per se, then they've also approved the lease purchase. And I think that makes a mockery of the ground rules of lease purchase. Basically, that says the voters ought to be able to vote on approving a municipal lease, okay? And once I came to that realization, it made no sense to me to continue putting those leases in the operating budget for the first year. And so, from a budget committee point of view, I won't support it at all in the future, and that goes to school also. That I think any new operating leases, new ones, ought to go as separate warrant articles. Excuse me, and I can't believe the voters would turn something like that down. But that's, you know, and I understand no means no. I understand that. So that's my take, and next meeting, I hope we'll have a full quorum here, a full membership here, and we can decide as a committee what direction we want to go with this thing.
I don't believe that the Board of Selectmen or the Budget Committee can jeopardize the town's safety. And my concern is that by doing this as a warrant article, that is exactly what we would be doing. We're rolling the dice.
You know,
What happens? I've seen people vote down, Bill. I gave you your chance, now give me mine.
yeah, I did.
Okay. I've seen people vote down warrant articles that had zero cost to it. Okay? Simply because they didn't understand it, or they weren't clear on it, or they didn't know, whatever the case may be. We, as a group, the Budget Committee as well as the Board of Selectmen, owe the citizens of the town protection and safety, and we've got to fund this somehow. And my point of view is that if you want to put it in the budget, we should put it in the budget. If you don't want to do lease purchase, then fine, let's do outright purchase. I don't have a problem either way, and I don't think the Board of Selectmen would have a problem.
So what happens?
Wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
But the point of the matter is, we have to take into consideration the safety of the citizens and make sure that we can respond to emergencies.
No question whatsoever, and all I'm saying is, a lease purchase is supposed to be approved by the voters. And by putting them in the operating budget, you're making a mockery of that requirement, because they don't get a chance to approve one way or the other. Okay, that's
Yeah,
the problem.
My concern would be, if you did an outright purchase, would that not be in your proposed budget, or would that be in a warrant article? Because if it's in the proposed budget, and the proposed budget still gets shot down, you're in the same situation with no cruisers.
No, in a proposed budget, if it gets shot down, we could do, as you heard the attorneys give you
Well,
that.
we
Let me
did that-
finish, please.
Go ahead.
As you heard the attorneys clearly say, the Board of Selectmen can make movements within the default budget in order to cover those costs. That would be exactly what we would have to do with that.
Gary,
So-
But if it was a warrant article, we cannot purchase, we could not lease purchase, we could not do anything with cruises. And that's the risk that I want to draw to the attention here.
And you can't even get a
And I
donation.
want to also speak to Mr. Spencer's comment that I and the Board of Selectmen are making a mockery of this. We have clearly gotten legal opinion that says that is what we did was perfectly legal. We've got it from two separate independent sources. And I think the claim that we're making a mockery is not appropriate.
I don't agree with you at all.
So, Bill,
Because there is no specific vote on a new lease once you put in the operating budget.
so Bill,
Okay.
here's I hear the new lease part, okay, but my thought is, when yes, you have a lease purchase every year for cruisers, and it renews every 3 years, but it's not a new lease, it's something we've continued to have. By new lease, we have the police cruisers, we've always done it that way, but now we want to lease purchase computers. To me, that's the new lease purchase, and that may be something that goes in a warrant article, not something that's always been funded that way.
Cindy, you're authorizing a brand-new lease, regardless of whether it's for a continuation of something else we've already purchased in the past. It's a brand-new lease. The law says it has to be approved by 50% of the voters, okay? Has to go to the voters and be approved by 50% of the voters. You put in the operating budget,
You may come back to the school.
it's not voted on by the voters.
Always done.
Okay.
A lease-
Let me finish one more. We didn't always put the cruiser replacements in the operating budget. We've had them as warrant articles in the past. They've been passed by the voters in the past. Okay, it's just past few years, I'll go back a few years, when we started going lease purchase. Made sense to do it. And all I'm saying is that I don't believe, never mind.
I honestly
So-
don't recall cruisers being on a warrant article.
Oh,
I
I
don't.
won't take them out, but
I'm not saying it's not true. I don't recall them being on a warrant article.
They have been.
For a long period of time, we had a system that we worked through with the budget committee where we would purchase two, then one, then
Mhm.
two, then one.
Yep,
And
in the
that's
budget.
exactly how we did it, in the budget. And I know, Mr. Spencer, you're hung up on lease purchase, and I don't have a problem with that. As I said before, I'm willing to do outright purchase if that's what the budget committee thinks is the right thing to do. But we have to be assured of having police cruisers. They are, for this town and for every other town in the state, a consumable. We have to be able to provide the security of the citizens, and that's key. If we can't get the officers to the scene of the crime, so to speak, we're in trouble. And we need to have some way of making sure that this happens and happens regularly.
So, Bill, is this something, and all committee members, not just Bill, is this something we can support, the actual outright purchases, going back to the rotating purchase one, purchase two, purchase?
Look, if the selectmen want to come in and say we're going to purchase them outright in the budget committee, in the budget, that's fine, that's where it belongs. But if you're going to ask for a new operating lease, I think the voters need to approve that.
So your
That's all.
concern is doing it by lease, but not doing it in the budget?
I have no problem purchasing cruisers in the budget,
Okay.
but not on a new operating lease.
Problem with these terms, though, because you're committing a voter to future spending without actually having them approve that future spending. That's what the lease does. You say in year 3 or in year 1, in year 3, I'm committing to spend. But if they haven't approved that lease, they cannot agree to commit that money.
May I?
Go ahead, Chris.
There's one point, I mean, I lease some vehicles for my business, and I know it's a nuance. When the 3-year lease is up, and you get the vehicle, you get a document from the bank that says this lease is now done, you made your obligations, you're done. I will purchase the exact same vehicle, but it is a new lease, and I have to start, it's a new lease for the same thing. So I understand the nuance and how it could be construed or confused or whatever, but it truly is a new lease. A lease expires and a new one starts, even if it's the exact same make, model, or even year if it's a leftover. I believe that things you need to operate a town, a consumable needs to be in the budget. You need to get it done. The question was never about, do we need police cruisers? But with my recent research and conversations about this, any new lease, as far as I'm concerned, my vote will be it's got to be on a warrant article. I'm with Bill on that one, because it's the same, on the big league, like on a school, a 20-year thing. I mean, you need a supermajority. Why? Because you can't commit somebody 10 years that doesn't even live in this town to spend a lot of money. So that's why the rules are there. So on a 3-year lease, you don't need a supermajority, but you're committing somebody that might not live here to increase taxes because somebody that might have just voted and is about ready to bail town and move out, voted for. However, and again, like Bill said, I mean, I believe right now all of the extras that we need to put in these new vehicles we're buying are already purchased, so that they're not. Okay. Still doesn't change what I'm about to say, because
There's two.
still two more. Okay. Because I know the extras, I think, cost more than the vehicle. But having said that, it doesn't?
Costs about $8,000 to $10,000 because you have to get the cages, the wigwags, fit out some other accoutrements.
Okay, then I'm okay, then I'm even better with what I'm about to say, because I just went by these last two lease purchases. When I heard what we owed on them, I thought that the extras cost at least as much as the vehicle itself, because the vehicle's in the $20-something thousand range, give or take a few bucks. So I would be for, no? Where am I wrong?
Vehicle costs around $32,000, and that's irrelevant whether you have what you classify as an SUV or whether you have a
Sedan.
Taurus.
Okay, and the extras are about 8,000 to 10,000, you said, that have to upfit
Yeah,
it?
in that neighborhood.
Okay. I would be for, if it's in the budget, a purchase. We did switch to leases at some point, and I'm guessing it is to smooth out the bumps, but I don't like that idea. I mean, in the big scheme of things, in a $5 million budget, if you're gonna throw 30-something thousand, just pay for the darn thing. I think it'll make our life a lot easier. Just pay for it. So I would be up for recommending a proposed budget with a purchase in it. but any lease, I want to see on a warrant.
Before I make a decision, may I ask one question?
Mhm.
Are there any other benefits to the lease purchase today, aside from spreading out cost? Warranties, services, anything else?
I don't know, Andrew, I believe you get the same
Warranty should be
warranty
the same,
and
yeah.
and oil change and that type of stuff, whether you purchase or whether you lease purchase. So I don't think there's a difference there.
Right, is there any other protection to the town included in a lease?
Not
Or
that
with
I'm-
this
not
lease
that-
that we wouldn't get with the purchase?
Not that I'm aware of.
I suppose that I am also for and 100% supportive of the purchase.
Carrie?
I agree wholeheartedly that leases must be on a warrant article. You cannot commit people to future spending without their approval, and that's what a lease does. So it either has to be bought outright in the budget, or it needs to be a warrant article on a lease.
And I think with the default budget from last year, I think there's an opportunity for this coming year, right, to get back into a 2-1-2 cycle, if that's what the Board of Selectmen so choose.
And the protections are there. Okay, the point, I don't agree with the point that's being made, because I do, the voters, I think, are being very clear and fair, and I think the voters are now more in tune than they ever have. I think we give them less credit than they deserve. There are still people that whistle and have no clue what's going on. I mean, we all know that. But more and more paying attention, and if you make a case to them, they'll vote for it. And I think this election was proof. They voted for warrant articles, but they turned down budgets. Because in general, it's just, no, stop the spending, but if you need that, I agree with that. But there is the no means no. I hate being afraid of that, and I'm not afraid of that, but in this case, if they say no to a purchase of a cruiser in a budget, okay, we'll get less money in the default most likely, but we still can get our cruiser on a purchase.
On the lease?
No.
Yeah? No.
Oh, yeah, you do.
Contract.
So what I'm hearing is the committee is okay with, in the budget, being outright purchases, but not leases. And is that the direction we want to give the selectmen?
Oh. Do we want to do it, or do we want to wait until we have a full committee here?
We can wait till we have a full committee.
I mean,
If
Sounds like we have a
full
quorum
committee.
anyways, so-
Yeah, I mean, if we have a full committee to pass.
It doesn't, it's
I
not
mean,
gonna
we
matter.
haven't had a meeting yet, but we had a full committee this
Can we
year.
reopen the vote?
Right.
Just allow them to vote on it.
My assumption is if the two members who are absent have an issue, they would ask to have it reconsidered.
I mean, I'd love to have a full committee, but we haven't had one this session yet.
Yeah, you're
Yeah.
absolutely right. I think we are averaging 2 missing members a meeting.
Sorry, I was sick last time.
Not pointing fingers at, you know, life happens, but it just.
I saved you from the virus.
Practicality, you know.
do you want to take a vote?
I appreciate you not sure.
If the committee wants to take a vote, that's
Yes.
fine with me.
I'd like to
So
take a vote.
I'll accept a motion then.
So maybe,
I would move, did that to Cindy? The Budget Committee will not include any new leases with a non-appropriation clause in its recommended operating budget. While it's up to the governing body to decide, it is the expectation any such new leases will be put forward to the legislative body as a separate warrant article, so it will be clear to that body what they are approving.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
can I see that?
Yep. So it's not specific to police cruisers, it is just in general, any lease purchase would be a warrant article and not in the budget.
Can I read that, Bill?
I think
That's the big print.
I think the selectmen's, what the selectmen is looking for direction on is, can police cruisers be in the budget? So,
There's a couple issues, if you're asking for discussion on the motion.
yes, I am.
We have a backhoe that's on lease purchase. We have a skid steer on lease purchase. We have copiers on lease purchase. We have a highway department truck on lease purchase. Okay?
Yep.
And if what you're saying, you're not going to include those in the budget, which is what your motion would affect.
That's
do.
not what it says. It says any new leases.
Okay, so what
Not
you're,
any new
I want to
leases
be
would be
clear,
noted.
so what you're saying is, even though the selectmen could take a legal decision for some type of equipment or some type of need the town has an immediate need for to do a lease purchase. As an example, a backhoe breaks down, which happened a couple years ago, or a cruiser gets took.
Stay with the backhoe.
or a cruiser gets totaled, or whatever the case may be, and we have to replace it, and we have to do lease purchase, what you're saying is you would not put that in the budget.
No, I did not say that. What I said
That
was,
would be a new lease purchase.
for the new budget, not the existing budget. Within the existing budget, you've already got the ruling from your attorney, you can go out and do it.
And it's recommended operating budget in the
Yeah.
new budget.
Just on the recommended operating budget.
So
Anything like you just described, you can do.
I'm then, Madam Chair, I'm very unclear as to what this motion would entail for this committee, and
Pretty
what it would entail
straightforward.
for the Board of Selectmen. And the school board, for that matter. Because I'm sure the school board has lease purchases that they do.
They do.
We do.
So, what you're saying is, in terms of the skid, they could,
I'm addressing our responsibility to prepare an operating budget. And what that motion says is that as we prepare our operating budget, we will not include any new lease proposal in that operating budget. Does not restrict the school board or the selectmen for doing things within their operating budget once it's approved. There's no restriction there.
so they could still enter into a lease contract, but at the new budget cycle, it would have to, the remainder of the contract would have to be in a warrant article?
No, that says new leases. If they enter
Well, that is a new
into a
lease.
new lease,
But that's,
So I'm confused.
yeah, I am too. If June 1, they needed new skid, they enter into a lease contract to get it, because right now the budget is tight, so all they can afford is that. So now we are entering, we're putting together a new budget that's gonna be voted on in March.
second year of the lease,
But it hasn't been approved.
second year of the lease,
And it will be the second year of the lease.
not a new lease.
But how does that, how is that any different than what we're doing now? They enter into a contract today,
We didn't approve it as a part of the operating budget.
and now it's gotta be, now year 2 has gotta be in the new operating budget.
Would you include it?
My motion does not address the second year or a third year of a lease. My motion addresses
New
a
operating budget.
brand-new lease in the operating budget that we are proposing. That's all it
So
addresses.
what's
The governing
this
bodies can
concept?
enter into a lease during mid-year, and if they so choose to do so, right, then the budget committee accepts that, right? And then we are essentially, any new leases put forth at time of operating budget, we would not agree to.
I'm just addressing our responsibility as
Okay,
a budget
not
committee.
to be a jerk or anything, but if I was a selectman, I'd do all my leases mid-year.
You know what, I said what it said, or the day before the budget is voted on.
That's the risk.
Look, I know where Bill's coming from now, because I understand the sentiment, so the point is, this gets back to the whole conversation, you can't just stop any of this stuff, all you gotta do is bring it to light. Here's the reality, mid-year, and now let's say it's a true need, the loader goes mid-year, it's $150,000, they don't have the money to buy it, clearly, we don't have the money, but we need the loader. So they take a 5-year lease at $50,000, or $25,000 a year, $30,000 a year, my math is off, I'm sorry. So $30,000 a year, and they pay, since it's mid-year, they pay $15,000. Well, legally, at least in my mind, it's not approved, but they did the right thing, they're not out of bounds yet. So what should happen now is it comes here, and we gotta say, well, yeah, you really needed it. It shouldn't be in the default budget because it wasn't approved. But it should be now on a warrant, and you go ask the vote, and you say, look, we already bought it, we had no choice, this is why, but you guys need to approve it, because the RSA says multi-year leases have to be approved by the voter. So it should go on a warrant. Now, Bill's thing doesn't cover that, because clearly you're right, not to be a jerk, they let them just approve 50 leases that day before the budget comes to us, and they can say, look, we already approved them, so it's gotta go in there, it's not a new lease. So, this is where Mr. Byron said the budget committee, the Board of Selectmen wants to work with the budget committee. We want to work with the Board of Selectmen, we just want to do things right. That's all. So,
So I'm
Where do
still
we go from
confused.
I agree.
So let me give you a different example. Sometimes we have to do a lease purchase, and the first year, we can't afford the first down payment, so we move the down payment to the subsequent year. Would that violate the
Yes.
motion as it reads on the table?
When did you enter the lease purchase?
Prior year, but there's no payments made.
You signed the document.
Yeah.
Done,
I like it.
done.
So I guess,
I'm talking,
What I
it's too
see
much
this motion as being useless, because it doesn't restrict anybody, and it doesn't help us.
I beg your pardon?
That's a
It
kind
doesn't,
word.
I don't think it does what you want it to do. If there's a way to get around it by the day before the budget, or mid-year, or
Doesn't
signing
prevent
it and then not paying it for the following year, if all of that is still possible, I'm not sure how this helps us.
Can we just restrict the motion, right, to say, we recommend that the Board of Selectmen place cruiser purchases in the operating budget as a, very specific, very targeted, this is what we're talking about.
Anything above
This is not just about the
35,000?
cruise. This is about any operating lease.
So there are two issues. One was, they asked specifically what to do about the police cruisers.
Which is what this would
That,
address.
that I think the discussion was, we want them to put them in the budget. The second piece was
Which is the next, yep.
your motion about any new lease purchases, whatever the item may be. So there's two different issues here. If you want to hold off on this particular one until we get the rest of the committee here, that's fine, but the discussion, and we can also hold off on giving direction about the police cruisers until the whole committee's here.
But listen, what's the feeling of the committee?
I say we have enough people to vote, I don't think it's gonna sway the vote either way.
Okay. All right, there's a motion on the table. Is there any further discussion?
Just let me clarify exactly what that is asking. It's saying, we as a budget committee have to put an operating budget forward. And that we will not, if this passes, will not include any new operating leases in the budget we're putting forward. Does not restrict the Board of Selectmen. If they need to go to enter the lease, once the budget is approved and can do it, does not restrict them at all. But it just says, we as a committee want to make sure that operating leases are approved as they should be. That the people know they're voting on them and they're approved as they should be. That's all this does.
To me, that includes the skid steer and the loader that was purchased 6 months prior. That's a new lease.
It's
So-
not, because they've already signed the lease.
But the operating budget's one thing.
This is talking about the budget we're putting
Proposed
forward.
budget. So if it's a proposed budget, then they have the right to put whatever they want in it. So I could see Bill's point of view that while you're using it, it should be in the proposed budget. So I understand.
I mean, look,
But there
I'm
is the
okay with this,
danger.
but it's not gonna
It
change
doesn't,
anything.
but you're still back where we are right now, because again, what happens if it fails again, then we have to shift money around, or is it built into the default budget too?
I think there's a motion in a
The
second.
only thing that I see this motion doing is if the selectmen come to us with a proposed budget and they say, starting January 1, we want to enter into a lease contract for a new skid steer. And this motion would then say that would be on a warrant article. We can do that, we can approve this motion, but I have a feeling there would be that we would never see that. Practicality, we would never see that.
Never see what.
Or
Because
wouldn't do it.
the better one is, fine, we don't give it to you in
But still do it January 1st.
April 1st.
Do it instead.
Right, it might incentivize them to not even bring anything this way and just to
That's-
lease everything they want, and then we can call it a.
But and to do
You know-
that, they've got to have money in the operating budget.
No, they don't. He just said he could take out a lease and not pay a penny. He just, I mean, they didn't do that with the two cruises you did. You only paid a tiny little bit, a little portion of it, because clearly we didn't have the money.
I figured if it's a cruiser's cruise
Yeah.
or something, but
And
I
that's
know
what
there was
they-
at least something that
Yeah.
was done that way.
I understand the sentiment, I just
I
don't
understand
think
the sentiment,
it's gonna, it's not practical, that this isn't gonna do what you want it to do.
And it might incentivize doing it the other way, the opposite effect. It might wind up with the opposite effect, that no leases come our way and they're all done prior to getting to us. Because then according to that, we have to, they're in there.
Oh, yeah, then the default budget's deemed to pass, right?
Right.
So therefore it's,
So I think it might actually incentivize the opposite.
So, can we, I know you're gonna call the motion in a minute.
Pretty soon.
But I want to throw something on the table. Is there any way, I mean, if you look at the stuff that you're talking about here, for the most part, a lot of these are critical. I mean, the backhoe, we use that all the time on the roads. we've got no choice but if that thing breaks down, and that's what happened to the earlier one. Skid steer, same type of thing. Copiers, I mean, whatever, and the highway truck.
But you know,
But the point I'm trying to make is, if we want to purchase a piece of equipment, a large piece of equipment, a new skid steer, and we're able to have the comfort of having this thing last until the end of the year and go through the budget cycle, I don't have a problem bringing this as a warrant article, and we build a case or whatever to do that. That's fine. And we can put it right in the warrant article that it will be a lease purchase. But sometimes we get into situations where we don't have a choice. The skid steer breaks down, we gotta move trash in that facility, and if we're not moving trash, some of you guys are gonna show up there with the windows overflowing, so.
You gotta do it.
We've gotta do it, so, I just need you to understand that there's gonna be times where we do it, and there'll be times where we can say, as an example, if we go to a fire truck, yeah, we gotta do something with the fire truck, and we would recommend a lease purchase to drop the price, because you don't want to bite off 800,000 or whatever the heck the cost would be of one. But at the same time, a lot of times what happens is these things break, and that's it.
but they break within your budget cycle, and you replace them within the budget cycle.
No, they're replacing 1/10 of it within the budget cycle.
Excuse me, they're signing the lease within the budget cycle,
That's true.
okay? This doesn't address that kind of lease at all. It's within their authority to do that, okay? They have that right. This just addresses one, as we're moving forward to put a budget out to the voters. And it addresses making sure the voters understand what they're voting on, okay, and approving it. That's all this addresses. Frank raised the skid, good example. Copies, good example. This doesn't restrict you in any way unless you're planning on going into a not buying them until the next budget cycle, which you're not going to do. You're going to do it because you need to replace them now.
So if that's the case, there's no problem with the 2 cruisers then? It's okay. We're not approving a new lease, it's in there, it's done, it doesn't change
You're
anything.
still committing people to spending without their
Look, I understand Bill's sentiment, and I agree with where we want to go. I'm going to vote no on this, because I think it'll incentivize bad behavior.
That's why I
And
wanted the full committee.
uh-huh.
Oh, I'm serious.
All right, I do think we are going round and round, so we've talked about the pros, we've talked about the cons, we've talked about what they can do and can't do and might do anyways.
I withdraw my motion.
All right. The motion has been withdrawn. Is the second withdrawn?
Yes.
Okay. Back to the direction we want to give the Board of Selectmen in terms of cruisers being in the
I'd
budget.
like to make a motion to recommend the Board of Selectmen place purchases of the cruisers in this year's operating budget.
Is there a second?
Purchases, including lease purchase?
Straight out purchase. I didn't say lease purchase.
I have,
Oh.
I didn't say lease to purchase,
If the.
purchase.
I don't have a problem with purchase. It
Straight
will
out.
increase the price of the budget.
I'll
A
second.
loan
in
versus a
order
lease. This
for
is a
discussion.
loan.
I'll second.
Can you repeat the motion, so I
Yes.
get it right?
Yes. The motion was to recommend that the Board of Selectmen purchase the cruisers in this year's operating budget.
And I second for discussion.
Next
But-
year's,
Huh?
next year's budget, right?
Can I discuss now?
Next year's
Yeah,
budget.
go ahead.
My
Next operating
concern
budget.
with that is, you're gonna see what we saw with the school board, where we put in, we had, take for example, your tech teacher in your lab. We put the lab in the operating budget, we put the tech teacher as a warrant article. We now have a teacher with no lab,
That's not true.
based on the operating budget,
Well,
what
they
was
can still buy
approved.
the
You had half
lab.
of-
Yes, I
Yeah,
understand,
have a
but
teacher
what
in lab.
happens is, by putting in the computer lab, we drive up the operating budget and making it less palatable. If you take them out, you reduce the operating budget and make it more, I can't even believe I'm saying this, because I'm for reduced spending, but if you take it out of the operating budget, it becomes more of a competitive number and more likely to pass. And
Fair
people
enough,
are-
but they don't want to do that, so, I mean,
So I'm just saying, for me, I think it should be recommended that the purchase be put as a warrant article. The heck with no means no.
Lease should be as a warrant
Well, if they're gonna purchase
Or we're
it,
gonna purchase
I think
it.
a purchase should be, because again, you're taking this specific item out, you reduce your operating budget value, and people will be like, oh, okay, I'm willing to spend
But-
$40,000.
But we have no control over what they make
Yeah.
in warrant articles,
And
so that's
that's,
not
and that's sort of political,
Right.
you know.
So I'm
We
just,
don't have a say over that, we can only go what's in the.
I would encourage them, if I were to provide direction.
Oh, yeah, I
That it
agree.
would be a purchase as a warrant article.
All right, so the
And that's
selectmen.
their decision to make.
That is their decision to make, but if
And
you're
this-
saying you're directing it in the operating budget, I'm saying that I couldn't support it necessarily as an outright operating budget item.
Of course, one easy way to drop the operating budget expenses is to lease purchase in the budget.
Which again is committing people to future spending, which is not.
And we're going
Contrary to law.
around in a circle. All right, so the motion is that we are giving the direction to the selectmen that we would like to see cruisers as an outright purchase
As a loan in the budget,
as
You
a,
know,
a purchase.
Right. you
As a
might-
purchase.
You're buying.
Purchase
You're
instead
not,
of a
you're not,
lease.
you're not
I
entering into a
You know,
lease.
are we still having discussion?
No.
yes,
No.
Bill, go ahead.
I don't think that we ought to be telling the selectmen that. I think the selectmen should make that decision whether they want to go purchase or lease.
Well,
They asked our-
They're asked for our opinion.
They asked for our opinion.
Well, in my opinion, I'd rather see lease purchase,
Then you can vote no.
okay? But I want it as a separate warrant article. I mean, that's their prerogative to do how they want to handle it. So I don't think we should be telling them.
They asked for direction from this committee. This committee, through discussion,
And-
predominantly has indicated they would like to see purchases rather than lease.
And my motion included the word recommend.
It's their choice.
It's their choice. My
Yeah.
motion included recommend.
They asked how we'd like to see it. How we'd like to see it is, they can choose to disregard us.
All right, any further discussion? If not, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed?
No,
Oh,
So it's 4-3. It fails.
that's fine. Fast, isn't it?
Can we do hands?
There
Can we do
were
hands?
4
I didn't catch
noes and
that.
3 yeses.
you said
It's 3 to 4.
4.
You said 4 to 4.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, I forgot. You twins over there, I forgot about that.
I
Yeah,
didn't
there
talk
were-
to him about this. He
there were-
was no idea
Wow.
about voting.
4 noes
going on
and
here?
3 yeses.
Maybe I watched
The
his
motion
lips to see
fails.
when he'd say something, but that's,
You
No,
were these two.
no, no. And who was the fourth? No.
I was.
Bill.
Bill
Got
was.
it.
you know, I see Bill going like this all the time with Chris Pascucci.
Bill and I seem to
All right.
be voting against each other half the
Frank?
time.
All right,
All
any
right.
further discussion on police cruisers?
Well, we have no recommendation.
We have no motion fails, so we have no recommendation.
Okay.
However, the discussion has happened, so people can certainly take what they want from the discussion we had. All right,
Yeah, only that, yes. But we'll have another meeting, and we'll have another chance to discuss this, and hopefully the full committee will be here, and maybe we can give some direction.
all right, moving on then, RSA 32:22, review of expenditures. This is just an item, a standing item, so if anybody has any budget questions,
Why are you looking at me?
you. You're usually the one with the questions.
I'm good.
Okay, nobody else? All righty.
Just that I'd like to see some numbers from the school when they're available.
Yes, end of year numbers. Moving on, member input, new business?
I just want to state that under state law, if a member misses 4 meetings in a row, they are no longer a budget committee member.
Unexcused.
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 Yeah. I had every single member that has missed a meeting since I've been here
I
has.
was just making a
yeah,
statement.
Has noted to me ahead of time what the issue was and what's been going on.
Very good.
Are you planning on being out of town?
Board of Selectmen are not under that. It's only members at large.
Which I take that to mean if, gee, we haven't heard hide nor hair of Harry for the last 4 months, boom, they're gone.
Just a question from my side under member input. Have we ironed out the process for what September, October, November look like? And what we're going to review, when we're going to review it?
The only thing that we did was what we did the very first meeting, which was it looks as though the town review, there's 4 meetings proposed, which is October 30th, November 6th, 13th, and 20th, and then the proposed school review, 2 meetings a week for
Okay. So it's just the
3
calendar
weeks
so
in
far.
December. So 6 meetings on the school budget, 4 meetings on the town budget.
Well, typically, it was either late August or early September, if memory serves me correctly, that we would work with the town administrator to iron out the review schedule for the town.
What was going to be,
Correct.
which items were going to be reviewed, which weeks.
When,
Yeah.
and if department heads are coming in to speak to us, that type of thing. So I would envision something similar happening this year as well?
I would envision that as well.
Okay.
That's my expectation.
You know, we turn on the news channel any night, and, you know, you see that we're in an economic rebound, things are doing well, new house starts are going crazy, we have world peace, everything's stable in the markets.
Airplanes are flying.
Okay.
Legislation revenues are up.
I'm not on drugs. Look, the bottom line is this, and I'm not making a statement now in anything into the future. I'm looking back to the past budgets. It's tough. The appetite for spending is not there. The appetite for necessary things is there. The people will vote if they feel it's justified. And things nowadays, and I don't know in your houses, but you talk with a lot of people, the rule is, do we really need that? Okay, we do. How badly do we really need that? Or we go on vacation, the airfare, we can't afford Florida, but maybe we could drive up to Toronto. Okay, so we got to sacrifice. Or, no, the pizza on Friday, it's $20. I can make pasta for 2. So that's really going on. So we just have to be conscious. Yeah, we could, you know, the boards will come in, hey, this is what we need. Yeah, they sell us. We put our stamp on it. How well has that gone the past couple of years, us putting our stamp on? Yeah, that's what, the ultimate is the voter. So we have to just, let's think past this room while we're here. Let's really justify every item that's needed. I'm not right now trying to make a blanket statement, saying no on everything. I'm just saying that everything that needs to come in, from the smallest things to the biggest things, to a little bit overtime to postage, let's go really through it in depth on our own and in this room, and talk to some of your neighbors and talk to some people. And again, a lot of people have no clue what's going on, unfortunately, and they'll just vote no on anything, most of them, when they have no clue. But we have to look a little bit broader, because what we've been doing clearly hasn't been working, I'm thinking, and that's a fair assessment, because the voters are turning us down when we recommend things. And I don't see it getting any better this year, or next year for that matter.
Based upon your analysis, you know, I think that we've done a fairly adequate job over the past couple of years reviewing expenses to a very detailed level. I mean, I've made cuts for $50.
I'm saying let's go deeper.
Right? Well, I understand what you're saying, right?
I'm not saying we did a bad job.
Well, you kind of are alluding to that, right? Because you're making a point that the operating budget that was recommended has failed twice, right? Therefore, we haven't done an adequate job. And I want to challenge that and say that I think a fair review process has occurred over the past 2 years, right? And we put forth a budget that was reasonable, that we felt as a committee, right? Now, the voters have spoken, right? The voters have said enough's enough, and we hear you loud and clear, right? So do we need to do a better job at looking at the numbers? Perhaps. Do we need to sharpen our pencils a little bit? Yes, right? And we'll certainly
Maybe I was a little
make a shot
sharp,
at it.
but I don't mean this personally, and I think anybody in this room, I've had to make that disclaimer 1,000 times, and maybe it's just my personality, and it probably is that. It's not meant to be personal. It's just when we do our job, we believe we do it well, and then the voters say, you failed. No. So do we look at it, do we blame them and say, well, you just don't realize what...
It's not a matter of blaming.
Okay. I agree with you. So I say now, let's go a little bit deeper. That's all I'm saying is, and let's justify everything, because I'm telling you, I'm doing it in my household. And I know you laughed when I said...
Well, I laughed for a couple of reasons. First, let me just jump on what Andrew was just saying. Maybe it's not cutting deeper, maybe it's educating the voter a little bit more.
Okay.
I mean, you're putting the voter down as if, like, the voters out there don't know anything.
No,
That's what you said.
I
You
gave
said
the
there's so many
opposite.
that are uneducated, and that's not the
I didn't
case.
say uneducated, uninformed.
Well, how much
Uninformed. You used another word, too.
How much
I laughed when you said
understood is
Toronto
that?
instead of Florida, because it costs as much for a passport and gas to get to
Well, actually, no,
Toronto than to fly on Southwest.
I actually used that example because we were going to go to Florida and then we picked Toronto.
Yeah, now you
Because
gotta-
you could drive up there and the cost was a lot less because it was $1,500 for families.
As long
Carrie,
as long as you have a passport.
All right,
Coming
Carrie
back
had a
to-
comment.
Before you get into the personal attacks or whatever.
No, I'm not personally
I mean,
attacking.
just think about how much underspend is on each side of the departments. The school is got quite a large amount of money coming to them, and the town's got some underspend. So that means to me that and I sat here almost every meeting. There were times there were disagreements as to how much could be cut, how much was fair. And the numbers bear out that we could have been a little more aggressive. And I just think that's where.
And the town has, right, the town has an underspend even after they got, well over $100,000 less than what they said they originally needed. So that tells me.
There's
Revenues were higher than expected.
One of the things that came out at the beginning of our new year was we felt that we wanted a new way to present the budget to people, more of a narrative of what's in the budget rather than percentages and dollars and whatnot. So I think that speaks to educating, doing a better job of educating people what exactly is in there, what are you voting on. So I think it's a little bit of everything. I think we need to do, I think the narrative, you need to bring it down to what everybody can grasp onto. There is a new police cruiser in here versus the revenue is up 15%, and that sometimes can just go right over.
And I may not have expressed it, but of course, I think I've said it in other times, even tonight, put stuff on the warrant because you got to educate the voter. That's the way you reach out a little bit and don't say, well, they might say no, so therefore we're not going to do it. I say, let's go the other way. Let's start putting more and more out on the warrant and educating. You got to start somewhere. You can't just say the voters aren't going to do anything.
What was that?
Did I reopen my motion?
We're past that.
I just heard him say he was going to vote yes for separate warrants.
I mean, just respond to what Carrie said, as far as there's a lot of money's coming back. When you're talking a $20 million budget for the school and you're only coming back $200,000, that's pretty close. You're talking.
700,000.
Yeah, but that's
One-time revenue.
That's from revenue, that's from spending. I'm talking about $200,000 of unspent.
When I had to do my budgets, I had to anticipate what my possible revenue was. It wasn't just my expenses.
And we
So
do
I'm just
budget,
saying,
and we do budget what
I-
a possible revenue
I'm-
is. When you get unexpected revenue, that's unexpected revenue.
If I'm a voter and I see I'm getting $700,000 back, and there was kicking and screaming and hair pulling when we're talking about cutting 50 grand or whatever, to me as a voter sitting there,
150.
whatever.
We don't want to blame this.
I'm just saying that
There's
there was
no animosity
obviously-
here.
If I'm looking as a voter, there was obviously a little room. We could have been a little more aggressive. We could have sharpened our pencils a little more.
And-
And there was room. That's
and-
all I'm saying.
And to be fair, the cuts that we made that are impacting this budget, this budget committee received commentary from the school board that we were crippling the budget.
Right.
And that's a quote.
And Brian, in all fairness, I mean, the school board and the towns try very hard to sell stuff to this group here. Of course, we matter, but we don't matter as much. We're just pass through. So the selling has to be to the people going to the
Absolutely.
ballot box, okay?
That's what I'm saying,
So-
yeah.
I want to correct something you just said. You're not a pass-through. You are the originator and the
Okay,
author
I
of the
agree.
budget.
I got to be careful when I say this around Frank, because you are absolutely right.
Of
And
the
we've done
operating
this-
budget.
We've done this in the past,
You're
yeah.
the originator and the
I-
author of the operating budget.
I agree with
We
you.
give you what we think is proposed in the right budget. Your job is to modify that.
Right.
Or not, as you deem fit, to make it into a budget that you bring forward to the voters.
So let me speak from
And that
my,
includes not just expenditures, but revenues.
I agree with you, and let me just speak for myself now, not as a committee member, or as a committee member representing myself only. It was me that the number that I want to present to the voters for the town was a hell of a lot, or the closest to what you actually wound up getting in the default budget, where I felt that the voters are going to agree with it. And so you're right, this group does it as a group.
My point is, and I don't know what happened.
So I'm speaking
last
for
year.
myself.
I don't know what happened last year.
We
I
didn't,
wasn't-
we didn't support his motion.
Okay. If you want to just make an ad hoc cut of $150,000 or pick a number,
Mm-hmm.
okay? Don't bring that to the selectmen and say, make it fit. That's your job, not
Okay.
mine.
That's what I'll be doing this year, if I do it.
All right.
I learned my lesson.
All right.
I learned a couple lessons, actually.
In general, that's exactly what we've been doing. Being very specific where we expect the cuts to occur.
I learned a couple lessons from last year, I really did.
Every year is a learning
Yes,
experience.
and I'm still learning, so, and actually Frank helped me learn a couple lessons last year, and that was one of them.
Wait till this year.
I'm eager to learn, Frank. I'm eager to learn.
All right, if there is no further member input, I'm going to look for public input, and again, we do not have anybody sitting in the audience, so I'm going to assume there is none. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned.